We'll start with the karakia. Whakatau mai te warua, whakawātea mai te hinanaru, whakarite mai te tinana, kia ea, ai ngā mahi, ai. Please note, this meeting is being live streamed and the consequences of that. We have an apology from Councillor Joyce, so I'll call for a mover and seconder to accept that apology. Councillor Henry, Councillor Murray Benge. Put that, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Now we have a couple of late items, so we need to resolve to accept these late items. They are the supplementary report recommendation for the annual plan, long-term plan committee adoption of the annual plan 23-24, and the supplementary confidential item recommendatory report from the Chief Executive Employment Subcommittee. So can I have a mover and seconder to accept those late items? Councillor Granger, Councillor Coxhead, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Next we have declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest? No? Okay, thank you. There are no public excluded items, so we'll now move to public forum, and I have a Kelly Hutchison listed to talk. So if you'd like to come to the front, and you have 5 minutes. Yes, please. We need to use that. You need to press the buttons so it goes red. That's right.
Okay, good morning. I'd just like to mihi to all the people for being here today. And I'd also like to mihi to the Mayor, the councillors and the staff also. I'd like to introduce myself in te reo, as I'm currently a student of He Papatikanga. I'd like to do this as a mark of respect to our heritage and the cultural significance of the mana of our waters. Kia ora tātou, ko Māo te manga, ko Wairo te awa, no tauranga aho, ko Angatete e noho ana, ko Hutchison toko whānau, ko Kelly toko ingoa. I'll now reference correspondence between the Mayor, councillors and fluoride-free supporters this week. This is regarding the urgent public health issue of potential fluoridation of our water supply. Public opposition to fluoride is growing rapidly. Recent publicity, you may have all seen the Baikini Times, the New Zealand Herald, Sun Live, has served as a great conversation starter amongst numerous local groups on various social media platforms. You have a lot of public support to seek an interim injunction, a lot. The Ministry of Health is continuing to rely upon inaccurate and outdated science. A question was posed to Council as to why the Ministry of Health has not provided any comment on the latest September 2022 National Toxicology Program Review. Mayor Denya's response was for us, the people, to take this up with the Ministry of Health. With all due respect, Mayor, the elected member's code of conduct states that you are to represent the interests of the people of this district. You are to provide good governance and prudent stewardship of Council's resources. Prudent stewardship. This is what you were all elected for. Mayor Denya, you noted that the letter you received from the Ministry of Health referenced the June 2021 update to the evidence. James, you are not being provided with the most up-to-date information from the Ministry of Health to make an informed decision. The June 2021 update is indeed now out of date, given the September 2022 National Toxicology Program report has been made available. Given what I've said today, I'm requesting that the Council, via a response letter from the Mayor to the Director General of Health, demand why she has not read the most recent September 2022 National Toxicology Program Fluoride Toxicity Report. Why is she ignoring the most current science? We deserve an answer on this. I trust a motion will be put forward after careful deliberation by yourselves to seek an interim injunction. This is how you represent the interests of the people of your district. This is the only way to halt the introduction of fluoride without incurring penalties and fines from central government. You've got a lot of public support behind you. You need to do the right thing. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you, Kelly. I would just comment, the comments you quoted from were really saying that I cannot speak on behalf of the Ministry of Health, and I hope that's understandable. But are there any questions that elected members have of Kelly?
I'll just respond to that, Mayor, please. No, you cannot speak, obviously, on behalf of the Ministry of Health, but you can ask a question and you can demand an answer for your people, because you represent us. We elected you to that role. You have your code of conduct to abide by. You're answerable to us. You're all in these positions. Central government wants to take your power away.
Well, they have taken that power away, but I'll open it to questions from...
You're the ones connected to the people. You hear our voices. You've got children, grandchildren in schools. My 12-year-old son is delivering his speech on fluoride to his school tomorrow. I was his age, his very age, when the referendum back in... Tauranga hasn't been fluoridated since 1986. I was a child at intermediate when my parents stood up. You know, it was an issue back then. This has been on my radar my entire life. My kids, I don't want their IQ going down 7 to 8 points. Kids these days need to be as smart as they can. They've got texting they're doing. We all know they're getting dumbed down. They don't need fluoride to add to that.
Okay, I think you've had your 5 minutes. Okay. So sort of count and you
I've got my intent there, and it is, I do get emotive because I am really passionate about this. My intention there is, this is not some fringe minority. Everyone I speak to, everywhere I go, I speak about this. Most people don't know that the Ministry of Health has even mandated you lot. It's not, you know, we've got a bit of coverage in the media this week, but most people don't know about it. And when they do, they are furious. They're furious. You need to get behind your public here. You need to grow a backbone. You guys can lead this. You have got a strong enough community behind you. We are strong here in the Western Bay. Look at our riches. It's not called the Bay of Plenty for no reason. I went after university.
So, Ms. Hutchinson, you've given your talk. We're now creeping into just giving another talk.
Can I have another 5 minutes?
No, I think so. But if there are questions, and I hear Councillor Wicker's got a question for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for coming. You referred to the NTP report.
Yes.
I see that it's currently still in draft form. Is that correct?
It's the US government's National Toxicology Program Review, September 22. So what we're talking about here is the most current science available in the world. 98% of Europe does not fluoridate. Only 4% of the world still does this archaic practice. It has no place in our water.
So the question was,
draft.
Is it still in draft form or has it been published?
I would have to refer to someone like Kane Titchener from Fluoride Free New Zealand for that one.
Yep.
His level of knowledge is up there. So I'm not going to do myself or the Fluoride Free movement a disservice by answering something I'm not 100% confident in.
So that could be the reason why the Ministry of Health won't reference it if it hasn't been published.
Ah, okay. Does anyone know that answer?
Right, okay, so we're not opening up to the floor. So
okay, I would love to find that out for you, and then who do I call and at what time? Because I will get that. I could get that now.
You're free to correspond with councillors as
Yeah?
they say.
Okay, 'cause
But
I'd
Councillor
love to
Murray Benj, you
answer
had a quick question?
Okay.
Yes, I accept that you've taken, that your rights have been taken away.
Yeah.
How many other councils are looking at an injunction?
Did you, Robert Lee, councillor from Rotorua, did anyone listen? He appeared on Reality Check Radio earlier this week. The public opinion over there is huge, same as here. They're our neighbours. You could join forces with Rotorua Council, support one another, say, hey, listen, we've got this really strong community that's saying we don't want fluoridation. Let's work together on this. Let's support one another. There's Nelson, you've got Greymouth, you've got Queenstown, Wanaka. You've got so many councils that are also, like you, scared about that threat of the $200,000 fine. The answer is seek the interim injunction. When there's something in the pipeline like that, they can't push it through because it's, under judicial inquiry. That's the answer. It's simple. Seek the interim injunction. It is the right thing to do.
Councils you have mentioned, are they also moving for an injunction? Queenstown, you mentioned?
I know they've sought an exemption, but like you have found, that's not going to wash with the Ministry of Health. It's an interim injunction. And that's the way that you guys, that you protect yourself from this threat of the 200 grand fine and the 10 grand every day thereafter until you comply. You know councillors better than anyone. Mandates are not law. They're not law. Good people break bad rules.
Right, okay. I think mandates are law. That is the way the law works. But-
Councillor, I challenge you on that. That mandates are not law. Mandates are not.
Okay, we're not going to get into discussion on this. But I hear you, and thank you. Thank you for speaking, and I appreciate the voices heard today and the attendance here. So,
Okay.
appreciate that.
Now this, as part of that email, sorry, Mia, you'd mentioned at the bottom, because we have organised, we've done what a chairperson did at the Omokoro Community Board meeting and have organised a public meeting. Mia, you questioned in your email.
Yeah, you questioned. Well, you mentioned about a chairperson's recommendation. It wasn't clear who you were referring
It was
to.
in your minutes, Mia. It was in the
For
minutes.
Omokoro.
No. It's in the minutes for today's that were published most recently on your website, and it was from the meeting in Omokoro Community Board Wednesday, the 26th of July.
Oh, so the Omokoro Community Board.
Yeah,
Chair,
and
okay.
it was Chairperson Jay Clements, and it was at the end
That's
of.
Caddy. John,
Yeah, well,
Chair
he was
Clements
the-
is Caddy.
In your minutes, it had him down as the chairperson for that Omokoro Community Board meeting, and you'd asked who
Sounds
the
like an error,
chairperson
but-
was.
okay.
It was in your minutes anyway. Yeah, so we did it. It's organised. We have done what chairperson recommended, and there is a public meeting organised.
Okay, I think.
Yeah, so there we go. But
Thank you very
asked,
much.
so I'm
If you want to
responding.
leave that, well, you're welcome to leave that. Okay.
Love to see you all there. There's going to be a massive turnout. It's Sunday, the 17th of September from 1:30 to 3:30 at the Te Puna Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
Kelly.
for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, and, sorry, and I was handed something else from Janice Priest to submit to all of the councillors.
Could you hand that to staff and they'll distribute it, please?
Yeah, thank you very much.
There you go. Okay, so moving on to the Community Board minutes for receipt. Page 8. Minutes of the Kadikadi Community Board meeting held on 26th of July be received. I call for a mover and seconder for those, please. Councillor Henry, Councillor Coxhead, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Omokoro Community Board meeting held on 1st of August. Mover and seconder to receive those, please. Councillor Granger, Councillor Thwaites, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Te Puke Community Board meeting held on 3rd of August. To receive, Councillor Daly, Councillor Wickers, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Makatu Community Board meeting held on the 8th of August. Receive those, please. Councillor Crawford and Deputy Mayor Scrimger. We'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Waihi Beach Community Board meeting held on the 14th of August. And receive those minutes, please. Councillor Henry, Councillor Murray Benge. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Sorry, Councillor Sol, I just saw your hand go up just afterwards. Never mind. Next, we move on to the council and committee minutes for confirmation. So, council meeting held on the 20th of July. I'll move that. Deputy Mayor Scrimger seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the annual plan, long-term plan committee meeting on the 25th of July. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, Councillor Thwaites. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the annual plan long-term committee meeting held on the 10th of August. To confirm those, Councillor Murray Benge, Councillor Wickers. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Te Kahui Mana Whenua or Tauranga Moana meeting held on the 26th of July. There's a slight amendment on that because in the attendance it should note that I was actually attending there. So with that slight amendment, I'm happy to move that. Councillor Granger second. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And the minutes of the Te Ihu o Te Waka o Te Arawa meeting held on 9th of August. Actually, you know what? Sorry, that attendance was actually for the Te Arawa meeting.
Oh, okay. Yes, okay.
You got that? Okay. So minutes of the Te Ihu o Te Waka o Te Arawa meeting held on 9th of August. Someone like to move those? Councillor Wickers, Councillor Crawford. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right. Now we need to, there's a change to the order of business. So we need to, that the order of business be changed and we take the late item supplementary report recommendation from the annual plan, long-term plan committee adoption of annual plan 23-24 as the next item. Can I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Granger, Councillor Henry. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Okay. So we have that item now, supplementary report. Now this is essentially just to replace what had originally been uploaded with a new version because there was some errors in the last one. So the key recommendation there is number 4, but I'll look for a mover and page number. I don't have that on one. This is the new.
It's in the late.
This is the late
agenda.
item.
It's the late open agenda.
Okay, so this is just to accept that replacement. So can I call for a mover and seconder for that? So Deputy Mayor Scrimger, Councillor Wickers, all those in favour of those 4 recommendations, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. So now we move to page 102, which is the recommendation report from the annual plan and long-term plan committee adoption of the annual plan 23-24. But with the main thing that recommendation number 4 has been replaced. Okay. And with that, I shall let Rebecca and Azura speak to this one, please.
Kia ora koutou katoa. As you know, this is a recommendatory report. The annual plan has been updated to include all of the recommendations that were made in the June annual plan, long-term plan committee. We have also included the decision document, which is highlighting the key decisions that were made through the annual plan, together with the schedule of financial contributions and the disclosure tables, which relate to the August annual plan, long-term plan committee meetings. I will hand over to Azura for any questions around the financial information, but otherwise we'll take the report as read. The only update will be, as you know, to recommendation 4, which is just to replace the attachment A.
Thank you. So just in terms of the attachment, a minor change was noted in the LTP before adoption 3 years back, and then we just wanted to make sure that change came through and carried forward within the accounts, and that's effectively the updated attachment. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions of staff on this item? Councillor Coxhead.
It's not related to the report itself, but it's in the report. So on page 131, we've got a project number 318501, radio frequency identification technology for the district libraries. What's that? It's probably one of the other staff, not.
Yes, tracking books, isn't it? Checking books, yeah. Does staff want to add anything more to that? Yeah, tracking books. Yeah. Okay. So if there's no further questions, I shall look for a mover and seconder for those recommendations, please. Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour, Councillor Granger. Is there any debate on this issue? Councillor Joyce.
I just really want to mention, again, we're in a cost of living crisis. We have wound it back a little bit. Yeah, I'm sure no one will be surprised that I think we could have wound it back a bit more. But now we're through that. I mean, the numbers are where they are, and the council is adopting this. But I would stress as we go into the long-term plan that we cannot afford, our ratepayers cannot afford another big bump up in rates, another one-off increase at the beginning of a long-term plan. They just can't. You know, with mortgages doubling, rents through the roof, the cost of living, you know, fuel, food, we need to cut our cloth. And that, I said the same thing for the annual plan. I understand, you know, people said, well, you know, it's come from the long-term plan and we've got to stick to what we promised, but we also promised to keep the rates down. So when we get to the long-term plan, we need to look very hard at some of the nice to have things that we let through. And yeah, when we talk about planning for the future and planning for the next generation, that also includes leaving some money in the pot for the next generation to spend. I'm sorry, I didn't do this thank you for your support, but I didn't do this for the audience. I didn't know you'd be here. So, but yeah, I mean, this is something I consistently say, so I'm so sure the councillors are probably sick of it behind closed doors as well as in public, but I just felt I needed to say that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Joyce. I now have Councillor Murray Benge.
All through the process, we were concerned that the community was telling us a lot of submissions were telling us they could not afford it. I'll never forget the young man from Katikati who built in Katikati rather than Tauranga because he knew that the rates would be cheaper, and here he is, you're putting the rates up and I can't afford it. And that was typical of an awful lot of people. And I agree with Councillor Joyce, we're moving into really serious financial times as a country, and that's going to impact us as a council. And if I look back at the fluoride debate, the government says thou shalt.
Sorry, we're not talking fluoride, this is the annual plan.
Money coming is not there. It is for a little bit, but we've got all these communities that have to be provided for. And too often we have a government that doesn't carry its weight when it wants us to do something. So we are the guinea pigs at the bottom of the heap, and keeping our rates down is fundamental. And I just wish the government would do the same, sir.
Okay, next I have Councillor Soul on Zoom.
Thank you, sir. Well, it's normally quite an auspicious day, the day that we adopt our annual plan, and today's no different. It's something that's been a lot of work. People may not be aware of some of the hold-ups and the stresses that it has put on staff and on councillors. But, sir, I basically have to say that I personally am disappointed with what we've got as a document. Within the document. I really feel I have far more of a social conscience than what we are producing. I just feel that the basic costs of running our business are quite noticeable, and that we do have to continue to run the business. So I am not totally blind to that, but I do believe that we should have been showing a little more willingness to get a few more points out of the percentage, so to speak, going up. It really is quite a disappointment there. So in the end, sir, I will support the document because of two things. I guess I'm also a team player, and I have I'm part of the collective responsibility for this. And certainly I will sit there and support and hopefully see it work. I hope we're able to bring a lot of what comes in there under the budgets that we've got. That would be a great start. And I look forward to seeing us smarten ourselves up as far as our contracts and work we do, and so on with the long-term plan. So really, sir, that's where I sit. Sad in many ways, but pleased to see the document being presented, and let's get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. I've next got Councillor Wickers, who wants to say his words.
So just regard to the annual plan, so many wheels are in motion that to try and change that was not that easy within the short time frame. But I support fully the comments by Councillor Joyce that looking into the long-term plan, we really need to make some hard decisions about what gets left out and what gets delayed.
Thank you, Councillor Wickers. If there's no further speakers, did Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour need a right to reply?
Yes, I would like to just make a comment too. Yes, I agree that 7% rate increase is disappointing, but I believe it's the reality of the times in which we live. And I was interested to read an article just a couple of days ago about the Mackenzie District Council, a much smaller council than this, which accumulated a deficit of, I think it was 4.7 million dollars for the past financial year versus a projected surplus of 1.3 million. So that's a turnaround of about $6 million. And we need to be very careful given the events that we've had to deal with. We all know about the storms that have been through our district earlier in the year in particular, and the impacts on roads in particular and other services too. And so we need to be very careful that we don't put the business of council at jeopardy by not meeting and dealing with what's in front of us. So while, as others have said, it's disappointing, I do support this proposal.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour. So with that, I shall now put the motions. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So we now move to page 279. So having adopted the annual report, this is the setting of the rates for 23-24. This is quite a long list of recommendations. It's a slightly new format than we have done previously. There is a slight change that needs to be made regarding the community hall targeted rate. Just the header there is, for some reason, says land drainage targeted rate, and it should be community hall targeted rate. So with that little slight change, I'm going to look for assuming there's no questions. No, so I'll look for a mover and seconder for those recommendations, please. Councillor Murray Benge, Councillor Henry. Was there any debate on this one? Noting we've just kind of debated this. Okay, in which case I shall put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank staff for all the hard work that's gone into putting this annual plan together. It's, as ever, a bit of a marathon effort. So now we move to page 289 in the agenda, establishment of a Te Puke Spatial Plan Subcommittee. So Ariel, I think you're up on this one.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. So this was a matter that you discussed at the Strategy and Policy Workshop, which was to create a subcommittee for the Te Puke Spatial Plan. And really that's just to provide that level of governance and confidence in the process. The resolution or the recommendation seeks to establish that and also includes a recommendation to disestablish following the adoption of the final Te Puke Spatial Plan. Any questions?
Okay, so were there any questions of staff on this matter? Councillor Murray-Benge.
We usually all are included, or your councillors that have got a qualification for resource management training. So what sort of subcommittee are you looking for?
So you'll see that the subcommittee is made up of members who have a particular interest already in Te Puke. So that is the Te Puke Community Board members, the Makatu Te Puke Community, councillors, and also our two representatives from the iwi Forum, Aotearoa.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And I would also just mention that the chair and deputy chair are to be decided and will be decided by the group itself. Okay. So if there's no further questions, Councillor Granger.
Happy to move.
Happy to move. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Coxhead. If there's any debate? No? Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move to page 294. Endorsement of the sub-regional transport system operating framework for submission to the regional transport plan process. I think we'll take this as read. Cedric, our GM for infrastructure, is here to answer questions if you have any. So were there any questions for Cedric? No? Okay, so in which case I shall call for a mover and seconder for the recommendations, please. Councillor Murray-Benge. I shall second that. Okay, so please go ahead.
I think the Regional Transport Committee is actually getting itself into gear, and the cooperation between Tauranga and Western Bay is much improved. And the latest move to go to government and to the opposition for funding for necessary transport planning within the Tauriko 29 area is vital. And the planning now for State Highway 2, which I keep saying again and again and again, it's about 10 years too late. And it was decided Amakara should have been 4-laned by 2015. We are now only starting to look at Te Puna to Amakara to do the design work. It has to be 4-laned, and I think if there is another government, it will be. I'd like to say also, sir, that in working with the community up in the Kaimais, the Upper Kaimais, and getting them to speak to the intersections on State Highway 29 has been really valuable, because in speaking at the workshop for smart growth and then lining up a woman from NZTA, we then appeared before the NZTA, the women and the men from the intersections on upper part of that Kaimai, and I can tell you it was refreshingly different. They were so positive, and they were going to prepare a safety plan and put it in for a road safety budget. And so we will see change there. And I just think that this area that's growing so fast is absolutely under pressure to have its roading network fixed. I'm down at Totara Street this morning, where they've built a beautiful cycleway, but it seemed as though everybody was riding on the road. And what they needed there was an extra lane to get in, for the trucks to get into the port. So change has to come, and this is one area where it's expensive, but we absolutely have to have better roading network than what we've got. We can't stay forgotten. And I'm pleased that you, Sue, and Tolly are leading the way on this, working with the government and the opposition for some action.
Thank you, Councillor Murray Bench. Councillor Daly.
I'm sure you'd agree.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'd like to speak in support of the TSOF report. I would like to just mention that I think there has been a bit of something lost in translation from the AFTI report to the TSOF report, and that is a direct transport link from Te Puke to the Papamoa East interchange, which was actually specifically mentioned in the AFTI report, but unfortunately it seems to have been left out of the TSOF report. We do have cycle connections mentioned around Te Puke, but not anything that addresses our roading issues. So I do feel this is a shortcoming of the report, but overall a step in the right direction, and we do need to keep that back of mind going forward this council. Thank you.
Thanks, you, Councillor Daly. Just to mention that this is an input into the regional transport plan, and so other projects like the one you mentioned can be included in that. Councillor Joyce.
Councillor Murray Bench has covered a lot of the ground. You know, we're way behind on investment in infrastructure in our sub-region, and that is due to many powers higher than us. Yes, it's a lot of highway work. It's a lot of public transport organisation. I just can't help but notice that Katikati doesn't get a mention. You know, it is actually expected to be the third biggest growing centre in our district, but Katikati and Waihi Beach seems to have fallen off the end again. So I do think there's some work there to actually understand, you know, we're a sub-region, not just Tauranga and parts nearby.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. Okay, so if there's no further speakers, I shall put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. We now move to page 339, the Community Matching Fund, which is to that we note the distributions. So any questions first? Councillor Coxhead.
Just curious how we measure sweat labour or sweat dollars. So when if the community group doesn't have a matching contribution, financial contribution, it does mention here labour. How do we measure that?
I'll refer to Jodie, who will better answer that.
Morena, elected members, how are you today? In relation to your question, Tracy, I think it's basically the reporting back that the organisation does once they've delivered their project. So they have to complete an evaluation form and they give that back to us, and that sets out their sweat equity, which is essentially like their in-kind volunteer hours towards the project delivery. So as part of their application process, they estimate what that looks like, and then the panel looks at that and sort of agrees that that seems about right, and then provides the funding support.
So you mean hours at a certain rate per hour or whatever? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? No? No, Councillor Joyce.
Sorry, I know it's up to the groups to apply, and you've done a great job getting around the district, but is it just me or Waihi Beach just seem to want money? I mean, they just seem to be missing in action. I mean, there's plenty of Katikati stuff there, which is great, but I just don't see a lot. I haven't looked. I mean, I'm just being parochial, but it could be other parts of the district. Are we sort of, the predator-free Waihi Beach is in there, so they've got a decent chunk, but not much else.
Could I suggest, sure, it's up for the councillors to actually motivate the community to put applications in?
I think I'd also make the point that, you know, the panel who select that they have a fair distribution in mind when they do that, but obviously they can only play what's in front of them. But I'll let Councillor Henry speak next, and then Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour.
So I've got 3 questions. So who are on the panel? Who are the people who are, the councillors that are on the panel?
That was Councillor Granger, Councillor Sol, and Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour.
Okay. And so the other questions are around the actual grant. Where is it currently advertised? And is there any support to the groups who are actually, you know, how can they be supported in writing the application? And referring to Tracy's question, there is a pro forma that you can get that actually gives you a current rate for Joe Bloggs working as a, you know, worker, and then there's professional standards that you can actually, so you can actually easily work that out. Put that in.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, the advertising for the Community Matching Fund, the first question you asked, Councillor Henry, is done through our usual channels, so through our social media and on the website. In terms of supporting potential applicants, staff go out and run workshops in 3 locations across the district, and those are advertised, and people can, or organisations who want to apply can come along and sit with the staff member and go through the application process. We also, of course, send it out through all of our networks like Live Well Waihi Beach, CoLab and the likes. Yeah.
Just further to that, I've attended many of these workshops, and it's not until you actually fill out the forms that you realise what you don't know. So is there still a contact that they can bring the council to any little pictures that come up along the way?
Yes, very much so, yeah. So they work directly with Sam Wilburn, Rebecca Chambers and Lisa Carney on those applications.
I think I would also add that there are, looking at the applications we received, there is no shortage of people seeking this fund. But I shall move to Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour if he wants to say anything.
Yeah, just a comment in regard to perhaps to where the money goes. I have noticed, having been involved for several years now, that it varies from year to year. And I know the first year that I was involved, there was a very heavy weighting towards Katikati area. A subsequent year, I remember it swung towards Te Puke. I can't specifically recall a year when Waihi Beach did well or badly, but there is a bit of movement. But there is a desire to try and make sure that within the constraints of the applications in front of us, that the money is shared around as fairly as possible.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour. Councillor Crawford.
So how many people subscribed to this? How many people actually applied for this fund? Because I know not everybody could get it. I was just interested to see what that number was.
It is in your folder, so you can look at all the.
So, yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I think around about there was 61 that were approved for funding, and I believe only around 70 odd total applications. Yeah.
Councillor Murray Bench.
I think over the years, having a councillor...
Sorry, is this a question or is this a statement?
Right. Are you aware that over the years, we've had a councillor from each of the wards, and I'm quite sure they work to make sure there is a balance overall. And so I shall ask the members of that committee, sir, did they take a balanced view over the whole district?
I think I shall answer on their behalf. I am aware that we do appoint one councillor for each ward. I appoint them, and I do it on the basis of sharing it out equally, and I have every expectation that the panel members did that. Okay. Councillor Daly.
Look, I'm not sure if I should declare a conflict of interest because I did do an application on behalf of a group I'm involved with. We were unsuccessful, so I'm not sure if that counts or not, but.
Well, this is council noting the distribution, so,
Yeah.
but your point is taken.
So
Thank you.
in response to Tracy's question about sweat equity, I did notice in the application form that there was a little bit of a inconsistency or an issue that was in relation to sweat equity. So perhaps I can take that up with you later, Jody.
Yes, that would be really useful. Thank you.
Councillor Granger.
I'd like to move the motion, sir.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for this, please? Councillor Joyce. If there's any debate about this? No? Okay, in which case I shall put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Jodie. We now move to page 342, the Tourism Bay of Plenty Statement of Intent for 23-24 and 25-26. So I think, Jodie, you're staying here for this one. I would actually just like to ask first, what are the key changes, if any, between the draft statement of intent and the final statement of intent?
So through you, Mr Chair, the draft statement of intent was brought back to elected members for feedback, and there was no further feedback given. So there's essentially no change from the draft to the final statement of intent in relation to the things that we were looking for through our letter of expectation.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Jodie? Councillor Henry.
So we can assume that Tauranga City made no changes to the draft. Is that what you're saying too, as well as us?
Yes, through you, Mr Chair, that is correct, yes.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I shall look for a mover and seconder for those recommendations, please. Councillor Crawford, Councillor Coxhead. If there's any debate, Councillor Murray-Bench.
It's just that everybody now is talking about our export earnings are under pressure. The dollar is under pressure, and tourism is going to be really important. And I hope that what the draft plan that we've got, the plan that we've got, that Tourism Bay of Plenty can be as successful, because our community needs to keep its standard of living up. And this is really quite important, Mr Chairman.
Thank you for that. So no further speakers? Oh, Councillor Coxhead, sorry.
One thing I would like to see is more of a focus on keeping tourists in Tauranga instead of them all going over to Rotorua. So, you know, the cruise ships that get on the bus, etc., go to the cultural experience over there. I'm sure we could provide something similar or better here. Just a thought.
Yes, through you, Mr Chair, in response to Councillor Coxhead's query there is a lot of work being led by Tourism Bay of Plenty at the moment around exactly that. So Oscar Nathan, who's the CE at Tourism Bay of Plenty, is also on the board of Cruise New Zealand. So he has a really good understanding of that cruise ship market. Interestingly enough, a couple of the large tourism offerings like Hobbiton and Te Puia are actually reducing the amount of cruise ship traffic that they are receiving, and that's kind of just a bit of repositioning of their businesses that they're doing. So that then creates opportunities for some new offerings, and there's some really interesting work going on that Tourism Bay of Plenty are involved in particular for Waihi Beach and Makatu, and looking at what some of those tourist offerings might be, or what products could be developed in those areas. So that work is going to progress over this next financial year, and I think we're going to see some really exciting things coming out of that. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce.
So, being me, I looked down to page 18 of the report, which is page 363 on the agenda, and looked at the financials. I see Tauranga Council is reducing its contribution. Next year we're increasing ours. We seem to have built-in inflation adjustments to these groups. Tauranga City doesn't. I just wonder if we need to take a look at this seemingly automatic indexing we do with our grants, because no one else is doing it. I mean, the other half of the district's not doing it. So, they're going from projected 2.15 or 2.16 million to 1.99 million the following year. So Tauranga is reducing its spending.
I think I'm going to stop you there because there's some clarification that that I think Jodie's going to give, hopefully, because there's a special reason why there's a reduction.
But it's not just 1 year, because the second year is also lower than this year.
So through you, Mr. Chair, Tauranga City Council made a decision, I believe it was in 2019, to contribute additional funding to Tourism Bay of Plenty for a 3-year period, and that funding came part from their airport shares levy. Not sure of the technical term for it, but that funding came from there, and it was specifically for a 3-year period. So that reduction that you're seeing was anticipated in terms of that 3-year period has now ended. Tourism Bay of Plenty are doing also a lot of work on looking at how they can leverage funding from other sectors as well, in particular the central government agencies. MBIE have had some really useful funding and also doing some work with Tourism New Zealand around that. So yeah, that's the explanation in terms of that change in funding from Tauranga City Council.
There's a couple of other bits in there too. For example, our contribution is noted that we put a CPI increase in. That line's not there for Tauranga, so they don't seem to do that. And I also see the Bay of Plenty Regional Council fundings, not that it's very much, but seems to stop.
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Chair, again, the Bay of Plenty Regional Council funding was, again, for a specific project, and that project has finished as of the start of this financial year. But yeah, more than happy as we go through this next sort of phase with Tourism Bay of Plenty and look at what's going to be coming up for their next contract through the LGP to be discussing those things.
Councillor Daly was next. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to speak in support of our support for Tourism Bay of Plenty. When I first became a councillor, there was a lot of maybe disquiet or a lot of the councillors didn't feel comfortable with the level of support we gave them in relation to the return that we were getting for that investment. I think since the change of administration a few years ago, they've really stepped their game up. We've changed some of our KPIs that we're requesting from them, and I think we're starting to see some results. I think what we're missing in the Bay of Plenty is that iconic or those iconic tourist destinations or attractions that, you know, like Hobbiton or Queenstown has a myriad of them. So I think the direction is good. I do think we're getting good value for money now from Tourism Bay of Plenty. The focus on cycle trails and walkways. Just last week at a meeting I was at, we had a report from the Hauraki Trails Trust. They have a different way of managing and investing in their cycleways. They've got 120 kilometres of cycle trails. The 3 local councils all contribute equally about $400,000 a year plus 3 iwi reps from each area. And the comment was made that for every $1 invested, they get a $10 return on that investment to the economy of the region. So I'm really pleased that we're looking at developing more of these tourist attractions within our district. And I still find it unbelievable that we don't really have, you know, more iconic tourist attractions in the Bay of Plenty. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. Next I have Councillor Henry.
I hear what you're saying, Councillor Joyce, and we sat through last triennium looking at to see what we actually received from Tourism Bay of Plenty in the, for the regions, and I actually agree with what Councillor Daly has said, because I think that we are seeing more work, whilst it hasn't necessarily come to fruition yet, we are seeing more work in the outer regions with actually trying to attract tourism from cruise ships in particular out in our area, and I'll explain what I've seen happening, but across the outer parts of the region. And so I think that's probably poor timing to be taking a reduction in what we're paying them. Well, looking at, well, I don't know what your point was then. So, I'm quite happy with the level of commitment because I see that we're actually getting some return from it. And what I am noticing out in our region is that with PSA and other things like that, a lot of visitors to our region having the opportunity to be able to visit horticultural establishments is now being worked through with regional, with the tourism Bay of Plenty and our operators, our service, under service contracts like Catch Kaddy Kaddy. And friends of mine are actually starting to now find that level of support to develop tourism opportunities within their orchards, and us being well supported by Tourism Bay of Plenty and our service providers. So what we didn't see last triennium, we are actually seeing now, but it's just in that embryo at the stage, but it will roll out. And there are other opportunities for Waihi Beaches, as Jody has said too. But we've yet to see them, but they're there. They're just about ready to make their entrance into the tourism world.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Murray Benj.
Thank you, sir. Jody, I agree with what Councillor Henry is saying. We did have the problem that Tourism Bay of Plenty didn't want to know the eastern end of the district nor the western end of the district. And they now have given significant contributions towards both of those areas, and it's refreshing. But I'm just curious, what on earth did the Regional Council do for $60,000? And I note that, for example, funding required, none this year, but just almost $250,000 next year. It just seems slightly odd. So that's sort of two questions.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the funding that Bay of Plenty Regional Council, it's the Green Room program that Tourism Bay of Plenty have run with tourist operators, which is a 12-week sort of program, also funded from Tourism New Zealand, around sustainable business practice. And so that's why the Regional Council partnered with it. It was around that sustainable business development, sustainable business practice side of it. So that was that contribution there. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you were referring to with the
Funding required, nothing this year, but then next year, 260,000, something, and then it bumps up to 500,000.
And that was it. Sorry,
I think that's looking at it here, I think that's like a funding shortfall.
Right, okay, yeah. So that will be where Tourism Bay of Plenty is seeking alternative funding sources to cover that shortfall for some, if they were going to continue on with that program delivery, or probably that one and some of their other ones as well. But I can clarify that as well with Oscar.
Okay, I think it's finally time to put the motion on this one. So it's moved by Councillor Crawford and seconded by Councillor Coxhead. No further debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we move to page 367, the annual report on dog control policy and practices 2022-23, and we'll welcome Dougal Alvin to introduce this one, please.
Good morning, councillors. Mr. Chair. I appreciate you're running for time. If it's okay, can I assume the reports are read instead of going through them? And I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions of Dougal? Deputy Mayor Scrimger.
Yeah, just interested in the Sorry. I'm just interested in the figures provided in regard to dogs, known dogs and registered dogs. And there seems to be a great deal of similarity from year to year in terms of the number of known dogs that are not registered. And I'm just curious about the actions that you're able to take in terms of trying to address that issue. I fully realise it's not a simple matter. I have gone into bat in the past for people who've told me stories only to find that don't tell you the whole story. So I fully appreciate it's difficult, but it just seems unreasonable to me that those people are freeloading.
Like I say, it's not an easy job. We've got a team of 5. They do their damnedest to get out there and make sure everybody is registered. We had a large purge at the end of the last year, around about April time, and that's trying to catch up with all these people that haven't bothered to register their dogs. As you'll notice, there's a significant drop in the amount of registered dogs and then the amount of known dogs in the district. And the reason for that is this: we had this purge where they sent infringement notices out to people to, you've had all year. You get this period in July where you get it at a discount. Then after that, it's the full price. But you've got to get your dog registered. It transpired a lot of these dogs that we thought were unregistered didn't exist anymore. They passed away or moved out of the district. So that's why the numbers have dropped significantly to 995. And to give you a further example, today's figure is 9980. So the amount of known dogs in the district is reducing. That's not to say everybody tells us the truth, when we call them up. And we say, your dog needs registering, and they say, your dog's dead. We can't go and visit everybody. But I've got a very good team, and they're doing their damnedest to, ensure that registrations are up. And to give you an example of where we were last year, this time last year, registrations were 89.96%. We're at 93.25% at the moment. So they're working hard and they're doing a good job.
Okay, Councillor Henry.
And just, I think for the fee that, and I'm not a dog owner anymore because my dog died, so I don't pay that fee, but I think for the fee that I did pay, there is a really good opportunity that council provides for activities for dogs and dog owners. And I just see that I didn't know you had this puppy classes. Are they things that people can attend free as well? Or, with their licensed dog?
Betty is one of our long-standing animal services officers. She provides the puppy classes. And she's been doing this for 35 years, and she's outstanding at what she does.
And that's a free service?
That's through the vets, yes.
That's amazing. I mean, I think it's fantastic what's offered.
Councillor Crawford.
Yeah, I was just in Rarotonga a couple of weeks ago. It's interesting how they do dog control over there. None of the dogs are locked up. They've all got collars. If they don't, they get exterminated. But the dogs, in my experience, I don't know if anybody's been to Rarotonga, but there's a lot of dogs. But they roam freely, and there's no aggression. I thought it was interesting just being in an environment where dogs are tolerated. Anyway, my question is, going forward in the future, are we, as Western Bay, thinking about more places where dogs can roam or can go, not attached to a lead? Because I just heard on the news that there's some other councils that are looking at extending areas where dogs can roam free. So, yeah.
Well, as in the report, we do have a number of areas where dogs can go on the leash, and there are a few places where they can go freely as well, and that tends to be seasonal. And obviously, moving forward, there's the concept of the dog parks as well. But that's more to do with the policy that we've got with regard to, we want to be able to provide exercise areas for dogs and their owners to enjoy freely, which is safe for the community as well.
Councillor, sorry, one more point.
Yeah, no, I just want to follow up about, because this is a policy thing, right? So just going forward in the future, is there any progress towards is it all make it more tighter and less restricted, or is there future planning as we grow? I'm telling you about our area as our population's growing and people got dogs, about whether there be future development. I know we've got a dog park that's about to open up, so we have been progressive in that sense.
I think this might be a better question for when we review the bylaw on dog control. This is about the
Through you,
annual
Mr. Chair,
report.
definitely. So
Yes.
the opportunity for our community and for elected members to have a change in our dog exercise areas and our restricted dog areas is through Council's dog control bylaw and policy review.
No, okay. Councillor Mobenge? Did you want to ask a question, Councillor Joyce? Okay, ask a question.
Sorry. I notice adoption queries are going down, and I have seen the activity on Facebook and thinks that's great. Are we still managing to adopt out all dogs that need adopting out, or have we had to do the horrible thing to them?
We're doing our absolute best to adopt any good dogs out there. A lot of the contact now is direct through Facebook, so it doesn't come through this, the service centre.
Have we had to euthanize any dogs that couldn't be adopted?
Unfortunately, there's times when we do have to euthanize dogs when they're no good. We can't rehome them, unfortunately.
Is that in this report, or have I just missed it, or do we not actually note
No.
that? We should note that in the report, I think, in the future.
No, it's not in the report now.
Okay, next time.
Just through you, Mr. Chair. So this is a statutory report that's provided for DIA. It does not include information around dog euthanasia and council's process for that. And that is, if that's not something that we provide currently.
We're also reporting to the public as well as DIA. So, I think we just need to, it's a piece of information that we probably should share.
We can provide that additional to the report to the DIA. Yes, we can.
Thank you. Councillor Mobenge, you've wanted to move it? Are you happy to second it, Councillor Daly?
Well, I was hoping to ask one last question if possible.
Go on then, Councillor Daly.
But I'm happy to
Question, ask a question.
Dougal and Ellison, my question unfortunately is similar to Richard's, but in terms of the number of dog-related complaints, in Te Puke we have a dog on leash area that doesn't include the Te Arakirikatea pathway, but we do have recommendatory signs around the pathway that owners have their dogs on leash. And I'm just wondering, walking around there fairly regularly, I do come across a lot of dogs. It is very popular with dogs, and dogs on leash. There's probably an equal number of on leash and off leash, but certainly the on leash ones can rush at people, maybe in a friendly way most of the time. But are any of these complaints related to dogs on walkways?
The complaints themselves aren't segregated into what you're requiring. They're kind of just compiled together. When we got written at dogs, I'd have to do some more analysis to work out where those complaints came from. But as Alison mentioned before, the requirement of the DIA is just to have that written at dogs category. If, however, you're aware of areas where there's non-compliance with dogs on leashes, we just need to know so we can have our officers go down there and rectify the situation.
I guess, and it sounds like you haven't really thought about it too much, but the bylaw review, is there a date set down for that? And is there consideration for, consideration for extending the dog on leash area to include like our public walkways would be part of that review?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would have to refer back to our policy team to see when that's set down on your forward agenda for consideration.
Bylaws are reviewed at our
controversial, and
bylaws are reviewed at our pleasure, and but I think that's every 6 years, so we'd have to check where we are in that schedule. But, yeah, okay. So with that, I think it's moved Councillor Murray-Benge, seconded Councillor Daly. If there's any further
Yes, I'd just like to speak and congratulate our dog department. I think they do a superb job and have done their, they are innovative and we've got so many dogs that people are so fond of. I think our staff are keeping pace with them. The only issue that I think I ever get a complaint about is wandering dogs, and that's something that I'm sure you've challenged with. But I really think, compared to what we've got in other districts, we're doing really well. And so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray Benj. No further speakers, so I shall put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Now, I think I'd like to take the next item and then we'll break for morning tea. So, because the next one's annual report on Western Bay of Plenty District Licensing Committee, which is Dougal as well. So I think we'll take this now and then morning tea after that. Okay? We're at 377.
And again, Mr. Chair, if I may assume that this report is read, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Councillor Joyce.
Just, and forgive me, I haven't had a chance to have a good pre-read, which I should have. But is the revenue earned covering the cost?
Sorry?
Revenue earned from licensing fees and applications, is that covering the cost of carrying out this activity? Well, I mean, we've got to do it. So.
Not quite, no. It's, I believe it's an 80%, 20% situation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the fees for alcohol licensing are prescribed by government. So we would have to apply those in terms of all of our activities. It does not recover the cost of undertaking our licensing regulatory activities, and that is an area that we've highlighted with the Alcohol Regulatory Licensing Authority, as have many other councils. There was a review started approximately 18 months ago by the Ministry around looking at changes to those fees. Fees have been in place since 2013. So, yeah, definitely not covering costs.
Councillor Coxhead.
So just looking at who can lobby, etc., and I understand you'd probably get a bit of lobbying from groups that were, you know, if there was a licensed premise going near a school or a kindergarten, that sort of thing. But just in the last 12 months, what sort of activity have you had in that space?
None.
Really?
Not in the last 12 months, no. We've had moments in Omukaroa where we've had a lot of lobbying about a new, and this is going back a few years now, where the local public were objected to a bar going in. As a consequence, the bar still did, you know, go in there with a number of conditions, but there was never any complaints about how that bar operated. Moving forward, I'll keep this very short. The legislation is going to be amended, so basically anybody can object anywhere to an alcohol license. So you could live in Auckland and object to something here, and that's going to cause us a bit of a headache. And we haven't quite worked out how we're going to manage that one yet, but we're looking at more DLC hearings in the future. So it's the government's made their decision for some bizarre reason.
So did council put a submission in on that change in the law?
The submission went in from an organisation which is the New Zealand Institute of Liquor Licensing Inspectors. It's not, in some regards, there's more to the legislation than what I'm telling you right now. There's going to be no cross-examinations within a hearing, so we can report and the District Licensing Committee can ask questions, but there's not going to be any hard-nosed lawyers in there. And the other aspect mainly is the objectors can be from anywhere in the country.
Councillor Henry.
The point that you just made about submissions being made from outside the area, is that covered off in point 16 on page 379, where you say sale and supply of alcohol amendment bill will prevent unnecessary appeals?
No, what that means is we're very lucky. We have a very, very robust local alcohol policy, which is, in my opinion, reducing alcohol-related harm in the Te Puke Makatu area. It's one of the strongest I've seen, and I know it's an envy of a lot of other districts. What happened in Auckland was the big companies, Countdown, New World, kept appealing their local alcohol, their provisional local alcohol policy to the point where it got up to the Supreme Court. So for a number of years, the local alcohol policy wasn't enforced in the regard it needed to be, because it just kept getting appealed and appealed. So what this new legislation is essentially doing is stopping that appeal process, because it was abused by the big business
Yeah.
to allow them to sell alcohol.
Yeah.
Councillor Daly.
Dougal, I did listen in to the second reading of the sale and supply of alcohol amendment, and that was what you've said is the main objection from the National Party speakers. And so I'm just looking at your point 16 in the report, where it says, we hope the proposed amendment to the Act will prevent unnecessary appeals to lapse, will be successful, but is
Okay. The DLC commentary doesn't come from me. It comes from our district licensing committee, a chair. The DLC's opinions on current matters. So we go out to the district licensing committee and we say, what are your concerns right now with respect to licensing in our district? And he's taken a wider view, which I appreciate. We hope the proposed amendment to the Act, the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act Amendment Bill, will prevent unnecessary appeals to LOPs, will be successful. What he's essentially saying is, when this was written, the legislation hadn't been passed. So it's basically saying he's hoping that legislation gets through. So the LAP, so appealing LAPs is a thing that can happen no more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky, isn't it? But I know that, and I appreciate that our LAP is acknowledged as being pretty good.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very
because
good.
some councils have struggled to get their LAPs actually through the process in their council because of the
Well,
appeals. haven't they?
we've identified where the harm comes from. We've segregated that from the big businesses, and we've dealt with that matter through the LAP. So it's a cap on bottle stores.
Yeah. And
Can I remind Councillor Daly, this isn't a review of our LAP, so.
no, that's fine. But yeah, the argument was that someone from the Invercargill Temperance Society, for example, could lodge a protest against something in Western Bay, for example.
That's different to the LAP. So if you wanted to set up a bottle store, let's say in Katikati, anybody from the rest of the country could object to that bottle store, irrespective of whether they live there or not. That's the problem. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but it is what it is.
But no doubt that the panel, the committee, sorry, would weight it appropriately.
I'd like to think so.
Just one last question, if I can.
Go on.
Try your patience. The applications we've had, I assume we're still at the cap in Te Puke Makatu with our number of. In Te Puke, we are at the limit with our number of bottle stores that we're allowed.
We put a cap on the number of bottle stores as it was back then. So no new bottle stores can set up business, but if somebody wants to sell a bottle store, somebody else can come in and have that business. But it's just we're not going to have any incremental bottle stores in the Te Puke Makatu area.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Have we had any applications?
No.
Or any requests to change the?
We've had one or two people try, but it's a quick answer, which says really sorry, but you can't.
Okay, Councillor Henry.
My question's around the contracting of the licensing inspector. I mean, I've been very confident that in-house it's been done very, very well. Can you talk about the decision about having it contracted out and how you feel it's going? That's number 25 on page 318.
Of course. last year when the general manager was promoted to a position. I was kindly asked to fill her boots, which then left a bit of a gap. There was no licensing inspector. I couldn't do both jobs.
No.
So we hired a contractor to come in who's a very experienced ex-chief inspector. And for a number of months, he helped out with the licensing issues, inquiries and monitoring and applications.
That person's still working in that field or just works for you when you require it?
No, that person's contract came to an end in November. We've promoted one of our own in-house members of staff to be the licensing inspector, stroke environmental health officer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we'll look for a mover and seconder on to receive that report. Councillor Daly, Councillor Henry. Put the motion if there's no, is there any further debate? No. Put the motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. In which case, I think we'll now move to adjourn for morning tea. Sorry.
Out of respect for the press here and those waiting online, we've only got 2 short items to go, so can we polish them off rather than have everybody hanging about?
Is that the feeling of everyone, or is it? Yep. Okay. Well, happy to proceed then. So we'll move on to page 390, which is my report to council. I'll take that as read, but is there any questions from that? Councillor Coxhead.
Just on the 31st of July, the Anson Korean exchange visit, that sounds interesting. What was it?
Okay, so it was a group of Koreans school children who I hosted here in this chamber, and they were it was for a shortish period of time their visit, and they visit things around Tauranga and Western Bay, and I think they were based in Te Puke High School. It was a jolly occasion. Any further questions? Councillor Joyce.
What I made, the LGNZ conference, you've summarised it. I mean, 3 paragraphs there, but one paragraph leaves so many things open. You know, it was a valuable experience with lots of great presentations. Are we going to get a more full update of what actually came out?
Well, I think the point there is that the material, the live streams and presentations has been made available, so you can go to town.
Your summary would be helpful because, frankly, yeah.
Well, I'm not your minute taker. I mean, if you want
not necessarily at this meeting. I mean, at some stage it would be good to have a bit of a chat about just what came out of it that's useful to us. Yeah, yeah.
Sure. I mean, what I would suggest is if there's something that interests you, I can give you an update. I mean, if you look through the topics and the presentations, to summarise the two days of meetings and with is quite a job.
Our deputy mayor was also there. I mean, CEO. Yeah, mayor.
Yeah. Councillor Murray Benjamin.
Used to get a more detailed report. Is it possible for when you go to something like that to put the link in as to where we go to see more?
Potentially. I mean, it's you get emailed these things directly, so I'm not quite sure why.
Well, for dummies like me, just the connection loop would be really quite helpful.
That would be very helpful. That is, when you're reading through, can I say, when we're reading through this sort of stuff, to have the link there would be vitally, save us a lot of time, because it isn't easy to go and find out where things are. I mean, I got told that the fluoridisation letter was in Stella. Well, I spent ages looking for it to actually see that it was actually contained within a council meeting. I thought it was in the appendix. I spent about 15, 20 minutes looking for it. So if there is a direction to highlight stuff that's like this one thing.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in this case, I think it's emails to elected members, not, I'm not sure if it's on their website, but it's.
Yeah, but when we're reading all today's stuff, how many pages did we have? To have a link there would be really easy if we just went to it, to click on the link, and so we didn't have to come out of that and then go into something else.
If it's appropriate, I'm sure I can help, but it's not always appropriate or possible to do that. Councillor Daly.
James, I did request, I think possibly at the last council meeting, the breakdown of the Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group, Cyclone Gabriel Disaster Relief Fund. And I'm just wondering if I've missed, if that's been uploaded to Stella or distributed.
That's something, we've got a civil defence person here. No, I think that can be provided. I haven't got it to hand, but that can be provided.
And just one other, if I quickly, the meeting you had on the 25th of July with or the presentation you attended with Boffa School, was any reference made to the Te Puke plan that they facilitated?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Not a crowning achievement.
Councillor Granger.
Yes, I apologise and would like to move your motion. Move this on.
So you'd like to move receipt? Move, okay. Councillor Murray Bench?
Sir, I noticed.
Sorry, you seconding?
Happy to second it. And I ask a question. You met with Tamati Coffey and Julianne Genter. Did you meet, and you've met with Tom Rutherford. Have you met with any other local MPs?
Yes, I sat next to Todd McClay at the Te Puke Volunteer Fire Brigade Honours Night. I have met with Scott Simpson alongside Simon Watts. I think that's listed in there, isn't it? Or maybe it may have been since the date. But I've met them with that was up in Thames, and I also met Scott Simpson and Simeon Brown at an event in Katikati. So you're seconding? Okay. If there's no further debate, I shall put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Which just leaves information for receipt. Correspondence with the Ministry of Health regarding fluoride. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder for those. Councillor Granger. Okay, I'll second that. I assume there's no debate. Councillor Joyce.
I mean, I realise it's a difficult matter procedurally because it's not on the agenda, but is it possible to get a report from officers, from staff about, and I know there may well be a little bit of cost involved about, what grounds there might be for taking the action or not regarding the request that we seek an interim injunction. You can't seek an interim injunction unless you've got some grounds. So are there any grounds? And I'm not expecting an answer right now because that would be off the top of the head, but we'd like to, in respect to our community requests, it'd be quite good if we could get a report at some stage in the appropriate forum before it's too late about the request from the community. That we do.
It's something we can consider. We're not going to make a decision now because
I understand that, and I realise completely because we need to. It's a serious matter going to court. So, but it would be worth. I'd like to see an investigation from staff on that.
Yeah, we can have a chance to discuss later. Councillor Coxon.
What was the last date, or logistically, that we could start implementing, the infrastructure, or start working on the infrastructure for implementing the fluoride? What was the last possible date we could leave that to?
It has to be in place by the 1st of July 2025. To make that happen, we'll obviously need to start procurement and implementation and all those things well before that. We'll probably need to start our procurement places early next year. Processes early next year. But yeah, in place by 1 July 25.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Granger?
Oh, sorry, yeah. We've got Granger and yourself.
Oh, Granger and myself, sorry. Got sidetracked there. Granger and myself, so try again. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. So I think what we'll do, we'll just move to go into confidential and then break for morning tea, okay? So, excuse me. Okay, so I'll move that we move into confidential, and councillor Henry seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried.